Welcome back to the alcohol-free revolution. Festive edition, I guess it is, Steve.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sitting here in my very best Christmas jumper.
Oh, you look gorgeous, mate. You look
Yeah,
gorgeous.
thanks.
So,
Tinsel all around me.
just jumping ahead a little bit there. So, my name's James Lloyd. I'm an alcohol-free performance coach. Who are you?
Well, judging by that last intro, my name is Santa Claus. No, my name is Steve Smith. I'm a festive alcohol-free performance coach.
Oh, amazing. I'm literally just picturing Dan Aykroyd in Trading Places, where he's got the Santa beard on and he's eating the salmon that he's stolen from the office Christmas party.
Really?
That's not very
Normally, when I go to
complimentary.
trading places, I try to picture Jamie Lee Curtis, but that's up to
All
you.
right, mate. That's a different pod. That's a different pod. That's going to need an 18 certificate on it. But yeah, you're very right.
Going back a
But
few years.
yeah. So we're both alcohol-free performance coaches. We've been alcohol-free for over 4 years, and life's pretty fucking good, right, Steve? Since we went alcohol-free.
Very good indeed. Yes, very good indeed.
That's
I'll keep the
that's why we.
decorum to this
Sorry,
episode.
and that's why we set up
Beep.
this podcast
Yeah,
because we want to share it with people, and we want other people to have the confidence to do the same thing and know that it's possible and know that life can be so much better once you've kicked the drink into touch. And I think it's fair to say that neither one of us were textbook alcoholics. Don't particularly like using the term alcoholic, but for the benefit of context, we were both kind of middle lane drinkers, probably drinking most evenings, bit of a binge at the weekend, socially acceptable stuff. Knocked it on the
brilliant.
head and just transformed our lives.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
Mhm.
Yeah, wanted to give
So
up while
what?
it was still. Go on, you go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry, you know me, I always talk too much, so just butt in whenever you want. I won't be offended. Um, so yeah, one of the things I guess we've been talking about a lot recently, and we're going to keep plugging away at it, is the alcohol-free revolution community. So we've been getting people together who are on a similar journey or adventure, alcohol-free adventure, I prefer to use that term. We've been getting together once a week on a Zoom call, meeting some people, some of our listeners. Some of them are sober curious. Some of them have been alcohol free for maybe a week or two, some few months, some years, and it's been such a positive space. I think it's fair to say that if you're trying to do any kind of behavior change, your best way of achieving that is to surround yourself with other people who are doing the same thing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's been a really, uh, just a really lovely environment. Monday afternoons. It's just, yeah, I look forward to it every week, and it's just, yeah, best hour of my week. Love it.
Mm. So, tell me about your Christmas. What'd you get up to?
I had a lovely Christmas, really lovely Christmas. As we speak, I am actually down in Cornwall, and enjoying the Cornish coastline, which is cracking. It's been lovely. We come down to some family down in Cornwall. Went for a very cold swim in the sea on Christmas Day, and jumped in with lots of the locals, and it was very brief. I say a swim. It was more a chuck myself in and get out as quick as I possibly could. I'm a warm water swimmer or an indoor swimmer at this time of year. That's what swimming pools were invented for. But it was great fun, and yeah, having a lovely time with family down in Cornwall. What about yourself?
I had my dad came up over Christmas, spent a bit of time with him. It's always a little bit challenging because my dad, half the reason probably why I used to drink too much was inherited behaviour from my parents, and my dad still does enjoy a bottle of wine or two, red wine or two, um, and I think that's probably created a little bit of friction, as it often does. My dad's still very much clinging to the 1970s science that alcohol's good for the heart. And I'm like, Dad, I can assure you it's not. He's not particularly keen on the fact that I'm alcohol free, let alone an alcohol free performance coach. So that's always a bit of an awkward topic.
Entertaining
But
chat around the Christmas table, I'm sure.
yeah, but I'd like to think at least it's not a drunken chat, at least from my side anyway. I mean, certainly in my prior years, I don't know how many Christmas arguments were caused because, there'd been too much booze.
Mm,
As I'm sure is the case in many households up and down the country.
mm.
So at least I could step away and and breathe. But yeah, but other than that, it was fine. It was nice to have a break. So yeah, I guess we should probably move on to today's guest. So who's
Yeah.
not in the studio with us right now? We did an interview a couple of days ago, which was absolutely wonderful. We were joined by Laura Willoughby, MBE, no less.
Mm.
Laura founded Club Soda, who some of you may be aware of. And that happened in 2013. She's been alcohol free for over 13 years. And to be honest, she's really a central figure in the alcohol free movement. I mean, she really is pulling the whole thing forward. She's absolutely inspirational human being. She really is a pioneer in this space, and it was a real delight for us to speak to her. So rather than me rambling on telling you about how great she is, let's just get straight on with our interview with Laura Willoughby.
Oh, wait.
Laura, for anyone who's just starting to take an interest in the alcohol-free space and perhaps isn't familiar with your work, perhaps you could just take us on a journey of how you've arrived at where you are today.
I know it's a bit of a weird one, really, if I think about it. So I set up Club Soda 11 years ago, and I set it up because I'd given up drinking, and I had felt that there wasn't anything that felt like Weight Watchers, but for booze. So you could go to AA, which I didn't want to go to when I gave up drinking, or local authority services, which I knew really well, but they're all about in-person services. When many of us are living our life online these
Mhm.
days, and many people who are drinking too much were like me, who were working during the day and needed something that would fit in around busy life and busy families. So that's where it started. And actually, I was really fortunate to go on to a business incubator program called Bethnal Green Ventures, which gave me a little bit of time and a tiny bit of money to really look at what it was that I wanted to do. And we very much wanted to root the Club Soda in behaviour change science. So we use University College London's behaviour change taxonomy to look at the areas of behaviour change, or the behaviour change techniques that would be most useful if you're changing your drinking. And it's really important for me to say that bit because it sort of gives some context to how we've developed and evolved. But actually, what happened very quickly is people started to moan about the lack of choice in pubs and bars.
Mhm.
And if you've ever looked at my CV, you will notice that I've got a campaigning background. I've been
I
a
saw that.
community
Yeah.
campaigner since I
Uh-huh.
was
Local
14.
government.
So you gave up drinking, you became a coach. That was never the first thing on my mind. I am not a coach, involves too much listening, but what I am is a campaigner. And so when people said to me, look, it's all right you talking about the fact that if you go out in an evening, you don't need to drink. But when I go to the pub, there's only this very sad bottle of Beck's Blue in the furthest away fridge. And so we did a piece of research that's now over 10 years old. I can't actually believe it, which I got Hackney Council to help fund, called Nudging Pubs, which basically we went and interviewed lots and lots of pubs, went and sat in the pubs, talked to them, looked at what they were serving, and highlighted where we thought there were problems in what you could get to drink if you weren't drinking in the pub. And we found that actually, even if a pub wanted to stock something, there wasn't really anything for them to stock. And then if they did, their wholesalers didn't often have it. And pubs only want to order from a couple of wholesalers because it takes a lot of time ordering stuff. And that there was a lack of education about, what the market was. And so we launched that to the hospitality sector back in early 2016.
Mhm.
And rather than them going, nah, go away, you're just trying to tell people what to do, they clearly liked the way that we worded it. And they said, well, actually, you've got some points here. And then slowly, I mean, in this time, we still had like 100,000 members all changing their drinking. And then Andy Ramage and One Year No Beer came on the scene. And it was really clear there was some momentum building around changing drinking. But also, what happened was some products started to arrive. So at the start of 2017, you had Seedlip on the market, real sparkling tea launched, and also Heineken Zero came on the market. So we decided to do our first ever festival. So we did our first mindful drinking festival on Bermondsey Square in 2017. And that's where our journey with drinks really began. And, it isn't the only thing we do. We still have courses and I still do workshops around changing drinking. But more and more, I guess what I've realized is that there's one key behavior change technique that has the power to change society. And that's switching an alcoholic drink for an alcohol free one and normalizing the fact that you don't have to drink when you're out. And for me, that's incredibly powerful. Being a campaigner, I am all about systems change and about how we don't just change our individual behavior, but how we might create a society that means it's easier for us to not drink. It's more acceptable to not drink, and that drinking isn't the star of the show. And so over time, all that's ended up happening is we've ended up honing and honing more and more about where we spend our time. And that switching an alcoholic drink for an alcohol-free one is sort of where we've landed. Because for me, that's where I think we can have the biggest societal impact. And that's what Club Soda is all about and what makes me tick.
Oh, you're absolutely speaking our language.
James, you go first. I've got
Oh,
so
just
many
good.
questions, but you go.
Well, I mean, to be honest, look, I'm a bit of a fanboy because I used to listen to your podcast with Drew back in the day, and you were one of the people
Oh,
actually who
thank
inspired
you,
me to.
James.
Yeah, when I first started, Steve and I are both in alcohol free just over 4 years, and yeah, yours are the podcast I listen to, so it's great to sort of I don't
I
particularly like
just
the term.
throw them out there and I never
Yeah,
quite
so
know.
yeah, so let me just get the whole fanboy thing out of the way first. But we've obviously both been to Club Soda in the past, and I used to work when I'm quite close to there actually.
Oh.
Used to drop in, and I know you've recently expanded it, so you've got new premises. Is that right?
No, we haven't got new premises. What we're
Oh,
doing is we're
you,
leaving the current space
Right.
because our lease is up and we don't have anywhere new yet. So I'm looking at what the options might be, including a number of partnerships and stuff like that. But we're
oh, I
actually
see.
closing, there is really annoying, but there needs to be lots of work done to the drains. If you've ever been downstairs, you'll see that our floor has been up for
Mm,
probably the last 9 months. And so it's getting harder and harder to do the things we want to do. The shop is only a small part of what we do, but actually what it is a collaborative space. It's I always like to, I haven't got a shop because I want to be a retailer. I have a shop because I believe it was a big part of education in this space and creating visibility for alcohol free. And that shop is only possible because it's a collaboration with the brands. And so brands all paid to be there so that we can have a space in Covent Garden. And some brands like Everleaf and Smiling Wolf and Three Spirit and so on have invested quite a lot in making that space work and helping us do it. We train the on trade in there and retailers as well as the consumer. So it does more than what it looks like on the face of it. And I do need to find more space to do that in the future, but it may take another form. I'm hoping I can actually work with lots of retailers and pubs across the country to create little mini club sodas in them so that everybody has something close to them. And obviously we've been doing some work with Majestic as well. So
yeah.
you get so there's some better drinks available in like 211 stores across the country. So yeah, it's an ongoing piece of work, but we don't have a new space yet. I'm going to be so sad to leave it.
It's a
It's
treasure
going to be
trove.
awful.
I don't
It
know how you
literally
feel.
is.
How do you fit
Like I
everything in
love the
though?
sign on the front, and I'm just like, and people come in every day, and we started to tell people that we're leaving on the 25th of January now, and that would be our last day. Part of me is really excited to not have to worry about a shop every single day of the week, and the other part of me is so sad.
I can imagine. I can imagine. I know that part of Covent Garden well. I spent my bartending days around that area, and
Yeah,
the first thing that really struck me about Club Soda when we visited at the turn of the year was just. I mean, it's in a very cool part of London, and just how well it just fit in. It's such a cool venue. Everything about it feels very Drury Lane, Covent Garden, and the only difference being that there's a zero on everything, and
yeah.
it's just yeah, it's just an incredibly cool place to be.
Shall I
And
tell you the funniest thing about the space? It's opposite the pub I had my last drink in.
oh, really?
Wow.
It's very funny, isn't it?
I was
Well,
going
Of
go on.
all the places.
I was going to say it's opposite the Masonic Lodge, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't know. There's also a Green King pub there, and that's I had my last drink after going to see What the Butler Store by Joe Orton with my friend Terry, and it was in that pub, the Green King, on the way back to the Tube. So yeah,
How cool's that? I mean,
yeah.
it's I'm probably in there every 6 months because obviously I don't live in central London. But whenever I'm in town, I always tend to stop in, and I always wonder how you fit everything in because there's obviously the market is just exploding in terms of the choices, and it is a relatively small space, and you must really struggle for shelf space. I mean,
Oh, we
it's an
have to
absolute treasure
say,
trove.
I have like 2, 3 brands contact us a week wanting to be in the shop, and we have to make some commercial decisions because
Of
obviously,
course.
we can't have things that don't stock, don't sell. Alongside, the fact that we do make sure that we pick things that we're really proud to sell. That if you come in and say, "Oh, well, I've tried other alcohol-free wines, they're all really horrible," and I can go, you know what, every single wine we've got on this shelf is absolutely top notch. They're amazing. And you
Mm.
might not like one wine because it might not be the right grape for you, but they're all really good, and we can tell you why. So yes, we could fill the shop 3, 4 times over, and but I am proud of everything that we've got, and we can talk about it. And it's a very consultative sale, so our staff will talk you through the products and also give you tasters. That was always the whole point. It's a tasting room for a reason, which is that you get to try before you buy, and you get to learn some stuff about alcohol free. Because often people will go, oh, well, I tried some alcohol free and I don't like alcohol free. And it's like, well, you might have tried some alcohol you didn't like, but you didn't go, you didn't like all
Yeah,
alcohol, did you?
exactly.
So come on
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
let's sort this out.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
fascinating, isn't it? Because people, people will go to the pub and they'll drink 6 pints of Stella. The same thing, one after another, after another, after another. And absolutely did that for 30 years. Now, when I drink alcohol-free beers in the evening, like every night, I'll tend to have three different ones. I won't drink the same one 3 times over. There's so much choice. I want to try different things. And but when
Yeah.
you're drinking booze, you're literally there a lot of the time you are there for the booze for many people, certainly for a lot of our listeners. And you'll just drink the same thing.
Yeah, well, and of course, to be honest, your brain's asking just for the same thing, isn't it?
Mm,
Because it's gone, oh, that made me feel a great way. So let's just have some more of that. And
mm,
you're less fussy, to be honest, despite people thinking that they're very discerning when they come to the alcohol they drink. Ultimately, the alcohol is what they're really going for, and the rest is marketing and other bits and pieces, or taste preferences. But yeah, it's the psychology of alcohol, and then alcohol free is really interesting. I do a lot of tasting sessions in Majestic, and I say to people, oh, would you like to try some alcohol free? And they go, oh, no, I'm not alcohol free. And they can't work it out in their head. And it's like I'm trying to poison them. No,
Mm,
I'm here for
I
mm.
won't
wine.
like that.
And I
Yeah.
go, you don't drink all of the day. Maybe there might be a breakfast at Christmas that you might want to have something really special for. And this sparkling tea is amazing. And you can see their head when they want to refuse you, but they realize how it sounds. There's a little bit of embarrassment there.
Yeah,
You do that,
yeah.
don't you? Like, you're like, well, I won't like that. No, I won't like anything with alcohol in it.
Yeah. And I love sort of trying to find the right way to frame something. Somebody might not try anything. So tea, for example, is probably the closest product to wine that there is, because tea is very much grown in a very similar way. It's harvested, is processed in a very similar way, has tannins and pairs with food. And so in Majestic, I love getting that out as people come round, because they've got so much choice of wine there. The fact that I can give them something that has terroir and has tannins and has single estate varietals suddenly piques their interest, and I can get them to stop and try something. I love that challenge.
That could massively explain my recent, well, I say recent, last 4.5 years, absolute love for tea since I gave up
Well, I never
drinks.
drank tea until I gave up drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
And then I discovered really good quality tea. And I am like now the biggest tea snob in the world. And
Wow.
I could spend £3 a gram on some tea. But and if you've ever been tea drunk, Steve, it is the funniest thing ever. But anyway, we can have another. If Steve want to do a podcast just about tea, we could definitely fill an
That's
hour.
it. That's it. Exactly.
Got
Exactly.
all
Might
my
have to.
favourite dealers. It's great.
Yeah,
I'm
love that.
interested to hear, rewinding a little bit. So you say that Club Soda started 11 years ago,
Yeah.
and that was so you're alcohol free sort of a little longer than that, or
Yes, I'm 13 years alcohol free.
right? Okay, and it was very
Um,
interesting hearing you saying there about the campaign going into pubs and kind of introducing alcohol free in 2016. How did that go? So that went down pretty well. It was well received at that time because
yeah, I think I still can't believe, I'm an expert in drinks, which is not what I ever expected. And I definitely go to so many events that old me would have loved. There's so much free booze in my life now. It's hilarious. Um, but back then it was a lot harder. After doing that piece of research, we also then built a pub guide, which the City of London and Hackney helped us do. They gave us some funding, and we went and visited face to face 400 pubs. That concentration of pubs in Hackney and the City of London is higher than anywhere else, probably in the world. And we visited 400 pubs to talk about alcohol free in 2016 and 2017. It's
400.
quite amazing. And we got some pushback from some pubs, but then, chains like Green King and Young's wanted to be part of it. We did lots of mindful pub crawls around it and all sorts of stuff. But it was really early days. And the one thing that came through is that most pubs were interested in what you might serve, but they just didn't know what to serve. And some of them still don't know what to serve now either. They don't know how to make the right choice. Their alcohol choices have been really easy and they don't know what's right for them. But there really just wasn't anything back then. And so while some pubs were amenable, particularly pubs run by women, They wanted to think about what they would serve during a lunchtime during the week or on a Saturday lunchtime when people didn't want to drink too much, but there just wasn't anything for them to pick from. So it was, I knew that something, there's been lots of moments in Club Soda where I suddenly realised that I've got the tone right. And that's when the editor of the Morning Advertiser, which is the biggest publication for pubs in the country, asked to come and see me. And I thought he was going to come and see me and go, could you stop sending me press releases? Because I'm not really interested. That's not what pubs are interested in. And instead, he came in and said, normally, all of these campaigns about stopping drinking, we're not, we even take the piss out of them. But he said, your press releases are bang on and they're really about choice and diversity and inclusion. And you've got the tone right. How can we help you more? I nearly fell off my chair. But it's why I've worked really hard on getting the tone right. And there may be some people in sobriety, because sober can be a very strong identity, might go, oh, well, Laura talks about moderating and Laura talks about choice, but doesn't talk about how evil alcohol is. And I could do that, but there are many other people doing that in this ecosystem of change that we all sit in, and you two included. I can fulfill a very particular role by making sure that we talk about choice. We talk about the fact that most people are actually moderating, and that for pubs and bars, this is about their income, which is really important for them. It's harder and harder to run a pub and bar, just as much as it is about choice and inclusion. And if I get that communication right, then change happens.
And with that, when that communication comes, because obviously the pressure on pubs and I guess some of the pushback would have been about, it's a great product, but how am I going to, we had.
Yeah, I've only got so much room in the fridge. I've only got so much room on the optics.
Exactly.
And stock, takes up a huge amount of cash.
Yes.
So they don't want things that don't sell. So, and that's still a challenge, but it does get easier year on year.
Yeah.
We had a couple of months ago. We had Denise Hamilton-Mace on, who I'm sure you know very well.
Yeah,
and it was probably one of my favourite episodes we've done, actually. And she was explaining some of the economics around alcohol-free and some of the complexities around why it's difficult for the hospitality sector to embrace, particularly draft and things like that, which is always a question. But it seems that it's moving so quickly. I mean, where do you see the alcohol-free sector being in 5 years? Where would you like to see it?
Well, I think it's still going to continue to grow, but it doesn't grow. I now delved into the world of what is basically fast moving consumer goods, and everybody wants stuff that sells at high volume, very, very quickly, very often repeated purchase. And alcohol-free drinks isn't quite there yet in terms of enough repeat purchase. And so there's a lot of work to do to be able to normalise alcohol-free in people's homes, actually. People now expect it when they're out, and they do expect something better when they're out. But people don't always pick up stuff to drink at home.
Really?
And I think the more that I know, James,
I thought it would be the opposite. You go into the supermarkets and
they're growing. Yeah,
it's growing like crazy.
It is and it isn't. I mean, I think the supermarkets have still got a bit of work to do to expand their ranges. You might have noticed that brand extensions from people like Tanqueray and Gordon's are now more predominant on the shelf, and they're at a very keen price point because their method of production is very different and their economies of scale are very different, and they've pushed a lot of the smaller brands off. And for some people, those products aren't what they want to drink. They want something different. They might look at if health is your motivator, then you're more likely to look at the ingredients on the back of the bottle and all of those sorts of things. The quality of the alcohol-free wine in the supermarkets isn't the best yet. There are some good products on the shelf, but it could be a lot better. And the ranges can grow and contract a little bit. And then once you get outside of the big supermarkets, in terms of everything from your nicer store all the way through to, Budgeons maybe, and then down to your independent retailers, there still isn't a lot of choice. I'd like to do a lot more work next year on making that choice more available wherever anyone shops, because pubs are generally getting better at it now, but shopping is something a bit different. But also, it's people drink alcohol regularly at home because alcohol's got alcohol in it.
Yeah.
When you want to not drink, there are many options available to you, including water. And on an evening, you might not be so fussed about wanting to sit down and create that ritual and that special moment, because ultimately we created those moments to enable our drinking of alcohol, right? And
Mm.
as much as we'd like to say, oh, well, it's all about relaxing and kicking off the shoes, it was all about the alcohol. We can create as many stories around it as we like, and so there isn't that incentive that your brain gives you to have alcohol on an alcohol-free drink on an evening. So we probably drink it less often. And I would say the same. If I'm at home, I don't always pick up an alcohol-free drink every evening. But we need to encourage people that you can have an end of day moment, a changing of from work to personal, that might feel a bit different with a drink that goes with your food at home and enhances your at home occasion.
That
It's
is
not.
fascinating. That I was going to
It,
say that's. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah.
I was going to say that is really fascinating because I'll be honest, I thought it was the opposite of that. I thought the supermarkets were killing it, whereas the pubs aren't. Um,
It's all
and
about regularity. So of course you don't go, most people don't go to the pub every night. So we're not drinking alcohol free in the pub every night, and then we're not also drinking at home every night. So whilst you know that if you go out to a pub now that you're probably able to get something good alcohol free, and you'd probably want something because the occasion demands it. You're in a building that's designed for being convivial and drinking and socializing, and you want something that makes you feel part of the occasion. At home, your choices are wider and more varied, and what you might do with your evening now that you're not drinking may be very different. So yes, the supermarkets are still doing well, and I'm proud of the work they've done, and I'm really grateful for their support for the work we do, because they came to our summit this year, and we had 716 meetings with buyers for brands at our conference in October, so that we could introduce brands to buyers. And the fact that they're all open to looking at what they stock, I'm very grateful for. But I need people to buy more alcohol free more often as part of their weekly routine.
is it fair to say that at home people are still kind of very much viewing that as an alternative to alcohol, if they're perhaps taking a break in a dry January or something like that, that the education piece there is not necessarily that they're going to buy that spirit or that alternate brand because they love it.
Yeah,
It's because they're looking for something to replace alcohol at home if they're trying to address
yeah,
their
it's a
drinking.
very much a mix. So you might
Yeah.
find that, we've just done a big piece of research on functional drinks. So drinks that
Yep.
have got nootropics or adaptogenics in it. Now you only get the benefits from those drinks and those ingredients if you drink them more often. So
Mm.
people are drinking, there is far more regularity of drinking drinks with functional ingredients in, because we see the health benefit of doing that. But otherwise, alcohol-free drinks in a home setting, I think, are competing with soda, and they're competing with water, and they're competing with the herbal tea that you might have in the evening, that sleepy tea. So I think, all in all, we need to do a little bit more education about, integrating alcohol-free into your home life as a way to create a moment for yourself in the evening at home.
you touched on functional drinks there, which I know will
Yeah.
be quite a new term to a lot of people. Could you just elaborate for the layman a little bit more on what functional drinks are and perhaps give one or two examples?
Yeah, so functional drinks have got nootropics or adaptogenics in them. Adaptogenics for your body, nootropics for your brain. And so you'll see ingredients like, well, caffeine is a good example of a functional ingredient. Alcohol is also a good example of a functional ingredient, but one that we're less keen on for its negative side effects. But you might see lion's mane mushrooms and ashwagandha, a shishwanga berry and guiana, and licorice root, and all sorts of ingredients that you would expect to see either in herbal tea bags that you buy or supplements that you might buy, things like maca, all of those sorts of things. You can put them into drinks that aren't just cans that you drink during the day, from Holland and Barrett, that might be to go with your lunch. You can also have those as an evening occasion drink. So you've got brands like Three Spirit that have created a range of spirits that do different things. So they either uplift you, because that's what their livener is, or my favorite, which is Nightcap, which is very good for helping you sleep and relax, and is a good digestive, and you can just drink it in a glass with a bit of ice, just like you would have done a whiskey in the evening. And you've got things like Smiling Wolf that have got a range of sort of replica, aperitivos and gin and a rum and a vodka that have got some of those ingredients in. So you should get a feeling of feeling relaxed. New Wave have put them in beers, and I know that Andy's launched his product, Authentic Brew, as well, which has
Mm.
got different nootropics and adaptogenics in them. All of those ingredients have benefits to your body. Some of them only really have those benefits if you use them regularly. So you may be, smashing back a mushroom latte at lunchtime, and then you might want to have something with mushrooms in the evening as well in order to improve your cognitive brain function. And of course, those are really compelling drinks in this space because they promise you something. They promise you some health benefits, and they may even promise you a feeling. They don't always promise a feeling, but some of them do. And therefore, it deals with that loss aversion you have from alcohol. You're going, well, okay, I'm not having alcohol, but I'm having this that will make me feel a bit relaxed or a bit more happy or a bit more lively. And therefore, I feel like it's doing something for me. And that has intrinsic value as well. And so people will buy them more regularly. They value them more than they might do some alcohol-free drinks. And then, of course, they benefit from the health benefits from them.
That sounds like it almost feels like the next stage. We're moving from, removing alcohol because of the known harms of it, moving into alcohol free, but now we're actually moving into drinks that not only have the alcohol removed, but are actually going to improve your health.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the fact that you could go to the pub and come out healthier. And then you've got things like, and then in that wave of drinks, you've also got things like kombuchas, which you'll know that there are brands like Real and LA Brewery that have them that are designed for going with food. That have a cork and cage bottle where which the pop of the cork, and so again they've got good bacteria in them for your gut. There's things like agua de madre, which has kefir flavors that are designed for the evening and pairing with food rather than high fruity ones that you'd expect during the day. So there's all sorts of drinks in this space that mean that you can go out in the evening and feel, oh, I've just come out healthier. You can have Botivo or Mother Root, which have got apple cider vinegar at their base, So that idea that you can go out, have something delicious, but it's also good for you, also feels that comes into that space where, we're looking towards our health, and the idea that you can do both with one drink is quite exciting. I find that incredibly compelling, and that has value to us as consumers. We feel that that's worth paying for. So yeah.
We can get to that space where I've been to the gym and the pub 4 times this week.
Yeah, yeah.
Feeling great.
when we had our pop-up in Great Portland Street at the start of 2022, we were right around the corner from a spin studio, and everyone used to come in afterwards and then pick up the 3 spirits in order to take home. It was that, it was just like a natural progression. So yeah, but also beer is a functional drink. So I love
I knew it.
I love alcohol-free beer for a number of reasons. One is because it's people don't realize it's one of the healthiest things you can drink when it doesn't have alcohol in it. So it's low in calorie, it's not an ultra-processed food, it's naturally sugar-free. Most of them, not all of them. So you do have to check your dose. But things like Lucky Saint are under 0.1 grams of sugar per 100 mils. Big Drop Citra is 11 calories a can and under 0.5 grams of sugar per 100 mils. So it's amazing. So it's hydrating, so functional, full of vitamin B12, so functional, and full of hops. And hops help you sleep. Hops are a functional ingredient. You'll find them in some of the other functional drinks. So all in all, you should definitely swap out all of your sodas for an alcohol-free beer at all times of day, including breakfast.
But as you're saying this, I have a waft of hops coming through my window because I live next door to a brewery, and they also have a very, very good alcohol-free beer as well. So I can smell the hops as we speak. So making it even more authentic.
Ingredients. So actually, alcohol-free beer should sit in every part of the day as something for you to drink. And the reason, we've just tipped over to 2% of the UK beer market now being alcohol free, but it's still 16% in Spain, and that's largely because they are a more I speak to people in beer about this, and we're not actually a very beer culture compared to other countries. We think we are, but we're not. But beer is part of the hydration in Spain. You'll drink a cold beer when it's hot to rehydrate. And generally, there were lower ABV beers. We're not talking about 6% beers. So
Germany's the same, isn't it?
Yeah, and Germany's the same. And so that hydration piece is something that we have not quite got into, and realise that alcohol-free beer is our absolutely super drink that we have that we should be doing a lot more with.
We quite often do sound bites like an audiogram to kind of promote the episode. That bit there where you just spoke about alcohol-free beer being good for you. I'm absolutely cutting that. Brilliant. That's such great news. How good's that? One of the things I'd love to hear a bit more about, Laura. I know you've recently done a collaboration with Heineken in Ireland, the Always Choice campaign. Could you perhaps
Yeah.
talk us about to that a bit?
Yeah. Basically, Heineken, we've worked with them over the years. They sponsored our very first festival, which I'm very grateful for. And obviously, they're a big alcohol company. They still sell alcohol, but they also have alcohol free. And so we have a policy of engaging with everybody because the the amount of money that big alcohol brands can put into their brand extensions helps raise the whole of the category up. The awareness of
Mm.
alcohol free has a large part to do with the fact that they spend a lot of 25% of their marketing on 0.0. Um, I'm also critical of them when it needs to be critical, but I'll always try and engage. And in Ireland, very similar culture to ours, but they were doing some work around. I think they're a little bit behind where we are actually. And they're doing some work around that idea that alcohol free is for every occasion, that people are drinking less. Some of the education work that's already happened here in the UK, and they wanted me to go over and do that and do some filming with an ex-Irish rugby player who was adorable and a food and drink writer from Ireland as well. So we did some talking head pieces about why we thought things were changing, why culture's changing. And in Ireland, I have to say, if you go there, obviously Guinness Zero is big in Ireland. There is a massive rumor going around, which is hilarious, but not quite true, that it's Guinness Zero that's saving Guinness. But certainly Guinness Zero is now a big part of what Guinness does, and it's selling really well, and it's outselling full strength Guinness in some supermarkets, I think. But this new narrative is emerging around alcohol free, and Ireland is definitely following in our wake in terms of drinking less, being more mindful. And brands like Heineken and Guinness are a really important part of that. But I'm hoping, because we do this industry conference, I'm hoping to do a small one in Ireland next year because there are a lot more Ireland-based producers beginning to pop up too.
Mm. Yeah, you brought it up slightly earlier, talking about the No and Low Mid Summit that you did earlier on in the year. How did that come about? Could you explain a little bit more about what it was for people who aren't aware of it?
Yeah, so when you have a politics and campaigning background like me, you see things in a slightly different way to somebody who's building their own brand and wanting to put a drink in a can and sell it to you. And so when I first started Club Soda, I also began to realise that there was an issue around descriptors with the government, that we haven't yet settled on a way to describe alcohol free in the UK. And there were lots of other things that the government could do to support alcohol free. And because I'm not making a drink, or really running a venue, I began to pick up that campaign and lobbying on behalf of alcohol-free brands. And so, sort of by default, we've become the trade body for alcohol-free and mid-strength drinks. And I do a lot of bringing brands together to look at how they do things together and collaborate, how we can grow the sector and grow the category so that we do what my goal is, which is to make sure that alcohol-free is accessible, visible, and celebrated. And lots of things that brands don't really have time for, but if there's somebody else around who can coordinate it, they're all really important things to building a whole category. And so we actually planned an industry conference for 2020, and obviously we know what happened in 2020 with COVID, and so that got
Mhm.
put on the back burner. And then we opened up the shop because we couldn't do a festival, so we thought a shop might be a nice idea, and so we got a bit busy with that. But I'd always wanted to bring the sector together to do a number of things. One was to give them some skills and shared learning so that they can learn from each other. So we had a whole load of masterclasses around everything from how to get your product into a bottle. Some of the big players in this space who help make drinks and are the people who help develop liquid for brands spoke. The Department of Trade came to talk about how brands can export. We had a PR agency doing work on how to work with influencers and all of those sorts of things. And then there's a whole stream of content which is really important for me, which is about how we build the category and how we normalise alcohol-free drinks. So we had discussions around, what would it would take for people to take alcohol-free home in their supermarket basket more regularly. Millie Gooch ran a session on how brands can build products for the younger demographic who may never have drunk before, because it's all right producing alcohol-free wine, but young people aren't drinking wine. We had sessions we had some sessions with some MPs about how to lobby government, all of that sort of stuff. And to me, these are things that get me really excited, which is good because I don't think they get anybody else as excited as me. So it's helpful that I'm doing this in the space. And they're all about how we bring the category together to build the category. They can do their own work as brands, but actually, if we want to get alcohol free to be more visible, we need to do some work together to do that. And I'm really good at bringing people together to collaborate. Part of that is also about how we bring consumers into that story, and we'll be doing a lot more work on that next year to create consumer advocates that can help us grow the low and no category, because I love a good campaign, and consumers really need to be at the heart of it.
I think we are so lucky to have somebody who's actually driving this whole category forward, because we have a lot of guests on from different parts of the alcohol-free space, and everyone's kind of doing their own thing, but you really seem to be leading from the front. It seems you have this a vision for the whole category, and it really feels like you're pulling it, you're really genuinely pushing it forward, almost single-handedly. You're the person who's geeing people, let's go over there, let's do this, let's go and do that, and people are following you. It's really fantastic what you're doing.
Isn't it? But I'm very passionate about systems change, and this is what it's all about. It's hard to do, I have to tell you, because it's very easy. We've never had any investment. We're all self-funded, and the brands, contribute to things that they're part of, which is really important. But because it's easy to find investment for a can, a product, an idea that has a consumer value, but it's hard to find investment for ideas. So I'm constantly trying to persuade people that I think this is a good idea, and if they could give me a bit of money to do it, this would be great. And I know brands are really short on budget and all of that sort of stuff. So I try and cobble together ways to make things work for people. I have never earned very much money at all, ever. I'm an idiot, but anyway, because for me, the biggest that there's a bigger prize here. And I was thinking about it last night, because we've rewritten our vision. I'm going to do a bit of a reboot next year, and I'm going to redo our vision and mission and values. And I've got some ideas around how we build our, passionate consumers as a bit more of an advocacy base. And I was thinking last night that ultimately, really what I want is, yes, I want alcohol free to be more available, visible and celebrated, but I actually want it to lead to lasting cultural change. I want this to change forever, the way that this country relates to alcohol. We've always been known as a country of big drinkers, and my co-founder Jussi is from Finland, and they're very similar. But I want us to be a country where actually people know that it's actually really normal not to drink alcohol anymore, and that it doesn't feel like it's compulsory, and that there are brilliant drinks available, and it doesn't matter where. And actually, that's a cultural shift.
I get the feeling that there is an undertone of that coming. I sense
so
that at the
too.
moment, because it was really interesting, and I've known for a while that we're not the biggest nation of drinkers, and but I only found that out through hearing research. I would so have put the UK down as, maybe it's just the kind of culture that we see around drinking. You mentioned there about,
well, we have loads of bants around alcohol
exactly,
as well,
bants,
so we like
exactly.
to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, don't we?
It's that pub, isn't it? Whereas you mentioned there in Spain, when they drink, it's much more acceptable for someone in Spain to go and grab a small beer at lunch and sip a small beer rather than here it's pints. I won't go into Germany because obviously they take it to the next level, but again, that's possibly even more just the tourist side of things as well, rather than the Germans themselves. So it's interesting.
We have this lovely notion as a country that somehow in France and Spain and Italy they do it right. But there's a right way to drink. I won't even go into the psychology of how that actually traps us into drinking more than we want. That idea that there is suddenly a right way to do it. And I said, well, that's okay. You may feel that drinking, and sometimes French and Italian and Spanish can be very snobby and say, oh, we only drink with food, but they still have the same amount of alcohol abuse and liver cirrhosis and deaths from alcohol as we do. France is currently the biggest growth market for alcohol free in Europe. So they're shifting their habits as well. So, ultimately, it doesn't matter how you drink your alcohol, whether it's with food or not, or whether you sip it slowly over an evening or smash it back in pints. We're all going towards that same health focus where, regardless of how you drink it, we know that it isn't brilliant for us, and that you can eat as much kale as you like, but but you undo all that hard work if you're smashing back a bottle of wine every evening,
Exactly.
whether it's
Yeah.
with food or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Um, Laura, we've spoken a lot about Club Soda and all the incredible work that you're doing. If you wouldn't mind, I'd love to ask you a few questions about you personally,
Oh
if you're
yeah.
okay with that.
Yeah, go on.
I mean,
Me? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously the work you're doing is wonderful and hugely inspiring. I mean that genuinely. It's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but seriously, congratulations on everything you're doing.
Thank
You've been
you.
alcohol free for 13 years, which is more than most people I can think of. What was the catalyst for you?
Yeah, it's quite amazing how those years tot up, by the way, guys. So you'll soon be at 13 years before you know it. My catalyst is that I was always a big drinker, like many people of my age. So I mean, I'm 51. I'm from that biggest
Oh,
drinking
there you
generation
go.
of women that there is,
You're in
right?
good company. All five
We
O's here.
I can talk to you about, if you really wanted to, about what happened with wine back in the 80s. That means that my generation is the biggest wine drinking generation. But ultimately, my dad was a big drinker. Drinking killed him when he was 57. And drinking was a big part of what you did in Somerset. Drinking cider out in the park was the stuff that we did. And of course, we're a generation that could drink in the pub at 14. I had to stop when I was 16 when I got an actual job in the pub and they realised how old I was. But ultimately, we started young. And I am my father's daughter, as I always say, that I inherited his drinking habits and his boobs. So ultimately, the two are probably related, to be honest. But anyway,
Brilliant.
so I always knew that I drank a lot, and I did drink a lot through my 20s and early 30s, and it was always mostly in control. But when you're involved in politics, there's a lot of being fueled by cheap white wine. And I also got elected as cabinet member in Islington. So my full-time job was politics for 4 years, and part-time for another 8. And so it was really easy to rearrange my schedule around hangovers, actually. So I'd go out in the evening, go drinking with political colleagues afterwards, and then feel a bit hungover. But I was also a bit younger and I could bounce back. And what happened is I ended up, when I was in my mid-30s, in a job that I didn't enjoy, where I know this will sound great to some people, but nobody cared if I turned up. Now, as you can imagine, I need to feel needed. I need to do things. I have a strong compulsion to fix things and to want to make things happen. And to be in a job where nobody really cared, actually sapped my energy like you cannot believe. And it sapped my soul. And I knew I needed to get out of that job, but my drinking went up, and I could find people to go for political people to go for boozy lunches with quite easily. And whilst I never drank every day, I did drink every other day. And I began to get to that point where it's a bit of an extreme sport, which I would just not stop. Once I started, I could not stop. And then I'd have a hangover and feel really horrible. And then the following day, I'd feel a lot better. And then I'd go, oh, it'd be nice to have a nice glass of wine. And then the cycle would begin again. And I'd think, oh my God, I just have to, I can't leave this job until I deal with my drinking. But of course, actually, I needed to get out of the job first. And so I actually managed to second myself out into a job that I was really interested in. And I sat in that job one day and went, hang on a minute, I'm now where I want to be. And I am going to ruin this if I carry on drinking. I have to stop. And so I booked on a workshop. I would never recommend that workshop to anybody. It was unethical and made me very angry. As you can imagine, anger is a really good motivator for me. So I came out of that workshop, and I never drank again. And I don't quite know how I managed it, apart from I accidentally put in place some very good behavior change techniques. And being angry with the workshop was one of them. I spent a lot of time thinking about how unethical it was to put people into a room that were dependent drinkers in large part. I was probably skirting around the edges of dependency, but there were definitely dependent drinkers in the room, and to tell them to stop drinking immediately, which is so dangerous, and without any ongoing support. But I accidentally got into a relationship with somebody who also gave up drinking. So we gave up at the same time. Brilliant behavior change technique. I managed to tell my friends and get friend support. Good behavior change technique. I swapped. I did a lot of exploring at that time herbal teas before I got into property. and got excited by that, and had got a soda stream and bought lots of really weird syrups and all of that sort of stuff. I even took up sewing for a very brief period, which
Blimey.
kept my hands busy for the evening. But most of all, I got really addicted to the energy I suddenly felt, and really small micro things. And this is the thing that I'll always tell people, which is, it may not seem like a lot at the time, but I always felt I was a people person. When I was engaged in politics, I wasn't really interested in being able to name all the prime ministers back to 1805. I was really interested in being able to turn up to a council estate and help somebody with their leaky roof, or their overcrowding problem. And I began to doubt that I was that person, because the more I drank, the more it's impossible to have really good conversations with people where you can hold their gaze and talk to them and listen and not be distracted by the fact that your head's thumping or you're thinking about your next drink. And so very quickly I began to have micro interactions with people on the tube. I could meet somebody after work for a drink, would have a coffee, and it would last an hour, and then I'd go home and there was still a whole evening ahead of me. These things were amazing, the time that it opened up. So it really became something that it was the small things that became the most noticeable. I always call it like 100 little epiphanies. And so those began to rack up really quickly. And I was like, oh my God, I'm feeling more energetic. My brain's clicking in. And I had a great interaction with somebody at a till. That it's tiny, but for
Connection.
me, they're really sustaining. And then I got to 3 months, and ultimately, at the back of my mind, this must have always been there. I did a lot of work on the bid for the Olympics, and I'd got a volunteering place on the Olympics. And I think deep down, I knew that I'd never be able to turn up to that Olympic park like a rational person that looked like they should belong somewhere near the Olympics if I was hungover every day. And at 3 months sober, the Olympics came along and I was volunteering. And I can tell you, I turned up at 6 in the morning, fresh as a daisy, thinking I could not have done this 3 months ago.
Mm.
And I walked around that park like I was a bloody Olympian, I can tell you, because I had so much energy and it was so exciting. And I just was grateful for every single day that I did that. And I guess ultimately, I don't ever ascribe that as being one of the big behavioral techniques, but I ultimately, if I think about it, it was definitely, I in the back of my mind, I suspect I was going, you'll never be able to do this volunteering, and you'll look like shit if you don't sort out drinking, and you really wanted to be part of this Olympics. And it was everything that I'd hoped for. And so yeah,
What an
making me
awesome
feel a
time
little
of
bit emotional,
oh, what an
even
awesome
after
time of
all this time.
yeah. It was such an awesome time, London Olympics, wasn't it? It was
It was
just
amazing. And
incredible
by
time
and
to
and
be.
by the Paralympics, I had
Yeah,
worked out how to get people into the Olympic Park,
right.
by signing them in as guests through the
Yeah,
media way.
yeah,
And so all of my mates are coming in. It's
yeah.
just signing people into the park. It
Oh,
was just
amazing,
glorious to be able to see that
amazing.
park in its full
Yeah,
glory.
incredible, incredible. I
And
I
I,
think
I
the
have to say, that's why I always say to people, 3 months is a charm, right? Because
yeah,
I think I napped for Britain, up until that 3 month point, because my body clearly wanted to rest. It needed water, and I drank water, so much water, and did so much napping. But by the time I got to 3 months, it's like somebody turned a switch and my energy came back in full force. And I'd say at 9 months, my brain came back in full force. So it was quite something.
it is, and it's those little wins. It's all those little
Yeah.
wins that just stack up, and you just want to. You can't, but you just want to be able to tell people, just give it 3 months.
Yeah, give it a bit
Just
more time,
give it
and
that
you'll
bit
find
longer.
yourself, yeah, you'll
Yeah,
find yourself hiring a zip car and going to get frozen yogurt at 1 in the morning in Soho, because you can get into a car and drive it for no reason apart from you
you
can.
can do whatever you want. Exactly, exactly. Oh, amazing, amazing. Going back to, sorry, a little bit off cuff, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want, but going back to your Houses of Parliament and your members and your MP situation, how many bars are there?
I
Oh,
wasn't an
okay.
MP. I was in local
You're,
government.
so you were
So
in, did you get into the Houses of Parliament? Do we know how many
um,
bars there are in there? Are we allowed to
oh,
know? Are
there are
you allowed
many
to...
bars. All I can say is I stood for Parliament twice, and I am so grateful I did not get elected, because if I had, I would have sat in those bars, subsidised bars, till very late. I would have
Yeah.
been in there with Charles Kennedy, God bless him, and I would have got completely wrecked. And so I am really,
Mm.
really pleased that I did not get elected, because I think it would have killed me.
Right. Okay.
some people who may not be quite so familiar with you, Laura, who perhaps are just coming into this space, you were awarded an MBE when you were 30,
I
correct?
know. Can you imagine?
I mean,
Pisshead.
Mm.
To get an MBE at 30. The only people who normally get MBEs at that age are athletes. So I feel like a complete opposite.
so that was obviously quite a few years before you went alcohol free, right?
Yeah, I
So
gave up when I was 39. It was the same year that my dad died. I got my MBE, so it was quite important to my mum that I accepted it because I was in two minds.
really,
But I've been a campaigner since I was 14, and I was secretary of my community association when I was 14. I ran the environment committee at school. I had my oh my God, I was like, if
you're a
anyone
doer.
listens to the I'm a doer. If anyone uh, yeah, I if I see a problem, I like to fix it. So people would always come to me with problems, and so it was very natural that I got involved in community politics and then local government. And and then I became the national chair in local government of equalities. So I helped steer through at the time civil partnerships and disability legislation, and even sat on the government's advisory forum on faith, which is quite hilarious, as the only non-faith member but representing local government. So I did quite a lot of very significant things. And I look back at some of those now, and like I say, politics has got quite a lot of alcohol involved with it. And I there's some things that I am not I am quite ashamed of as well during that time.
I won't ask, but
Yeah.
one thing
So
that comes across from meeting you, Laura, is you mentioned it briefly there. You have enormous energy. You have such an aura of energy around you, and you mentioned about how your energy sort of started to increase when you went alcohol free. But I guess when you add the clarity piece when you stopped drinking as well, I mean,
yeah.
what have you noticed from what changed when you went alcohol free? Bearing in mind you were already a high achiever, you were already somebody who was getting shit done. You
Well,
had
I
all
was a
this
high
energy.
achiever that was in a fallow period, definitely for at least 5 years. But I, well, there's a couple of things that are quite important, and because we can often focus on things that are very um, visual when we give up drinking. Losing weight, getting fit are quite big ones. But I would say it reconnected me with my values, giving up drinking, because I am a very values driven person, and I began to I talk about my interactions with people and beginning to doubt that's who I was. But what it allowed me to do was to have the brain space. My brain wasn't continually tired anymore, and it gave me the brain space to be able to engage with issues that I care about again, and to be able to go, well, okay. I mean, I can also see why I drank, right? Because I want to fix everything, and everything is not possible to fix. There are so many things that need doing. I would often get quite overwhelmed by the fact that I want to, reform the whole of our prison system. I would love to reform the whole of our housing system. I've got lots of ideas around how to, redo our education system. It's just not possible to do all those things. And so to deal with the noise, it's really easy to drink
Mm.
and then sleep after that, and quieten all of the to-do lists in my head, of which there are many and they are copious. I can see why I drank, but what it did do is it allowed me to reconnect back with my values and recognize that I do want to change things, and money isn't the motivator for me, and to begin to think about where my energy was best spent. But it has allowed me to at least compartmentalize and realize that I can't fix everything. It doesn't always work, but I'm at least a little bit better at that. It was 3 years before, I guess, when I was in a bad mood, I didn't reach for a drink, or think about reaching for a drink. I obviously didn't reach for a drink, but thinking about reaching for a drink. And so when that happened, it was quite something. I knew where there was some alcohol, and I was angry and stomping around and wanting to respond to that, and realized that. And I even got some steps to get the alcohol down, and then realized that I couldn't be asked to find the steps, and it really wasn't that important. So that was quite a turning point for me. So definitely reconnecting with my values. And then I have to also, I do a lot more. I'm a lot fitter than I ever was, but my fitness still goes in. I wax and wane. Some days sometimes I do nothing for months, and then suddenly I want to do everything. And I sometimes give myself a hard time over that, but then I realize that I wouldn't be able to do any of this if I was still drinking.
Mm.
So it doesn't matter that I don't do it perfectly. The fact is I'm still fitter than I ever was. And so I still have to stop myself at times and go, you know what, none of this would be possible if I was still drinking. So stop thinking about the things that I think I should be doing or I'm not doing, and think about the fact that where this could be if I wasn't not drinking. And I have to say that if I was still drinking around menopause, whew, I'm so
Mm.
glad I gave up before menopause, because there
A lot
isn't
of myths
anything
there.
about alcohol
Mm,
and menopause. Do
mm,
not mix at all.
no.
So I feel a little bit triumphant at this point in my life.
Mm. I mean, how do you feel of somebody of of a woman in your 50s? How do you feel about the myths around menopause and alcohol? I mean, because it feels from the outside looking in, it does feel like pouring petrol on a bonfire.
It does, but everybody's different, and so it won't always be the case. Everybody's response to menopause, perimenopause, and menopause is different, and certainly I notice that just amongst my friendship group. The truth is that alcohol doesn't go with anything that might be wrong with you, to be honest. So menopause just adds a few more things onto the list for you. But you know, if your mental health isn't great, alcohol's not great. If you're overweight, then alcohol's not going to help. If you've got any medical condition, alcohol isn't going to help. Alcohol can affect everything from your ears and your eyes all the way through to every system in your body. So ultimately, um, if I can see some people now going, well, I'm not in menopause yet, so I can carry on drinking. So we'd use that as an excuse. But of course, the effects of alcohol are cumulative. But I do believe that, we're really lucky that people like Davina McCall are quite vocal about alcohol and menopause. And so that's helped really shift that my generations, and the fact that, we've gone from being a generation that was taught that if you're feeling anxious, you should drink more, to
Mm,
being a generation that's learned from younger people and their social media that alcohol and menopause and poor mental health do not mix. And so we're doing a lot of really nice intergenerational learning, as well as, being realistic and going, you know what, I've told myself alcohol was the answer for such a long time, but we all know deep down that it isn't. And we're beginning to hold our hands up and go, I admit it now. And I see some amazing shifts. So when the City of London have funded some of our work, and the City of London, common councilmen in the City of London generally tend to be men over the age of 50. And when I first started Club Soda, they'd all be a little bit, tongue in cheek about what we did and knowing that it was important, but not for us. And now when I go to some of the dinners there, some of the common councilmen come up to me and go, "Oh, Laura, I've not drunk for 6 months. And I found this really amazing alcohol-free beer. And oh, I've been cutting down what I'm drinking. Have you tried this beer and this beer? And I've discovered this beer. And isn't Guinness Zero great?" And to me, it's those small anecdotal things that show
mm.
that there's a shift in people's attitude, and it's feeling more accepted that you might not drink all of the time.
But before we let you go, Laura,
Yeah.
I'd love to know, kind of conscious that we're using a lot of your time here. I'd love to know what is in your fridge this Christmas. What have you been drinking? What recommendations have you got?
Oh God, I always feel very awkward about doing this because I hate to have favorites, but um, we've got a very lovely German brand, amazing maker called Your Geiger, which I won't go into now, but he has been making alcohol-free drinks for over 20 years. He has made a wine called Chateau Le Moth, but I just call it Chateau Laura, because it's the best alcohol-free wine I've tasted, because whatever I was drinking in 2011 before I gave up was this grape and this style of wine, because it's the first wine I've had where I've had a flashback memory to my time of drinking. It's quite amazing, because there was a big gap before I drank any alcohol-free wine because there wasn't anything available 13 years ago. So I'll definitely be having some Chateau Le Moth, some Chateau Laura this year. It's probably not available for anyone else to buy, by the way, which is a really cruel thing to say.
Oh,
But
So
I'll
all round to
also
yours Christmas Day then,
yeah.
yeah?
but I'll also be having, I quite like a red wine, Zeno Red,
Yeah.
which you
Oh,
can get in
yeah, we're big
Waitrose.
fans
It's
of
high up
Zeno.
on my list.
We had David on a few weeks ago. He's
Yeah,
brilliant.
and Moderato Red, which you can get in our collection, and Majestic is really good, and their white is amazing. I'll be having some Everleaf, because that's one of my constant favourites, the Everleaf Forest, as the aperitif style drink. I always have some Three Spirit nightcap. I have a serving suggestion that isn't endorsed by Three Spirit, but is, I drink my Three Spirit nightcap in my pajamas from the bottle from the fridge door. I'm so like,
Wow.
I believe that if you can find an alcohol free drink that you drink like you used to sometimes drink alcohol, then you're on to a winner, right? And in terms of sparkling, I'll probably have some of the Zeno Rosé. I also really like your Geiger Blanc de Blanc, which we've been selling like hotcakes in the shop. And I'll always have a few CBD drinks, a good raise I tend to drink. Yeah, and then Bativo's in our collection in Majestic, and along with Everleaf, my favourite way of using them is I always have a small bottle of each of those in my bag. So if I go anywhere and there's not an alcohol-free drink, I can grab either a tonic and add my Everleaf to it, sneakily, or a sparkling water and then add Bativo to it because you don't need very much Bativo. It goes an awful long way. So those are some of my little hacks that if I end up somewhere, particularly, funnily enough, catered events can sometimes still fall a bit short. So if you have a work Christmas party and there are caterers, they tend to have not thought about it. Or if you go to a big set piece meal at a hotel, they will often include half a bottle of wine but not think about what to serve you if you're not drinking alcohol. So, and then Sisho sparkling tea as well. Their jasmine is in Majestic and I've been drinking a lot of that recently. It's beautiful.
Something I'm mindful that we're recording this 1 week out from Christmas Day. Something I
Oh
get
my
asked quite a lot
God.
of is a good replacement for Baileys at Christmas, because obviously
Yes, well, I do recommend that you make your own. There are some recipes out there. It's really easy because it's just a load of condensed milk and sugar, basically. We do have something called Irish Twist that is in our shop, but it sells so quickly. I'm not even sure I'll have it back in. Wise Bartender will still have it in stock. But if you ever look at the ingredients list for Baileys, it's mostly cream and sugar. That you can get a saucepan, and I designed a low sugar version some time ago before even the alcohol free rums were out and whiskies were out, so you could probably look at that recipe on the Club Soda website but then add in a whiskey or a rum or similar in order to give you a bit more of a kick. Maybe you could add in Smiling Wolf rum, which is also adaptogenic, so it might give you a little bit of a floaty feeling. That'd be good. So yeah, or Rebels do a rum and a whiskey alternative that you could use in it. But it is possible to make your own.
Awesome.
Any hidden gems in terms of beers that people might not be aware of, other than the usual?
What I'll also
big
say
brands?
is we've got the amaretti in the shop as well, the Rebels amaretti, which is fantastic. So you can make yourself that lovely almondy tasting sours over Christmas. In terms of beers, I'm not such a big beer connoisseur. I never drank beer when I was drinking alcohol, so beer is something that I drink but not as regularly. I really like New Wave because it's got adaptogenic ingredients in it, so it makes me feel very nice. A can of that definitely does. And I'm always a big fan of Big Drop Citra. That was the first alcohol-free beer that I really liked.
That one.
Apart from obviously the different stouts that you can get, because I've realised how good stout goes with chocolate, and therefore that's always a winner in my world. I like quite hoppy alcohol-free beers. And the Beero's out. So Tom Holland's Beero.
Tom Holland's.
Yeah, so I've been drinking some
Have
of
you
that
tried
recently as well. Yeah, it's really
Any good?
Yeah, and they've got 4 different SKUs. So I quite like the pills, but they've also got a wheat beer. So yeah, so it's a
just a dreadful brand name.
Beero. You don't like Beero?
What? Yeah. Come on, couldn't have done better than that.
I don't know. Everyone's a critic. Everyone's got a view. I think it's quite hard coming up with brand names for alcohol free because you want it to not sound like it's only about sobriety. Because,
yeah, sure.
People are drinking lots alcohol free for lots of different reasons. You want to signal that it's alcohol free without it being so obvious as well. So it is quite difficult communicating alcohol free, actually, when you want to not always focus on what it hasn't got, but on what it will do for you in terms of social inclusion and conviviality and occasion and that sort of stuff. It is quite hard. I do feel for the brands. It's a bit like, you know, the vegan space has been here before us, really, in terms of being able to communicate vegan alternatives without always talking about the fact that it's not meat. You know, it's really difficult.
I've had people comment before, this alcohol free thing is this the new vegan?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of similarities. and we're more flexitarian, right? And that's the same with drinking. We're moderating more, and so I think there's a lot of similarities. And I do a lot of looking at the vegan space in order to look at how we might embed behavior, because I don't want this trend to go away. I want it to stay. I think it's good for us all that we all have a better relationship with alcohol.
Laura, it's been a fascinating chat. It really has, and I've been so looking forward to having you on the pod, and I'm sure I speak for James as well. Where can we find out more about what's going on with Club Soda and yourself going forward, and what the next year holds?
Do join our email list on joinclubsoda.com. We don't send out a huge amount of emails, but next year I am going to be trying to press you all into action to be active consumers, and I want to give you all more resources. And I really need everyone's feedback and suggestions and ideas on how we do that. And so please join, and we can keep you in touch with that. And you can find us on social at Join Club Soda. And then the tasting room is open till the 25th of January. So that will be our last day. It won't surprise you to know that there may be a few sales in the last couple of days. So it might be a good time to pop along. But do pop along before that. It is a tasting room for a reason. If you haven't found an alcohol-free wine you like, I can promise you we have got some of the best in our store.
Amazing.
Anything we can do to assist with anything you're doing, Laura, please.
I will be coming back to you
stay in touch.
When I'm a bit clearer about how we're going to press all of our members and all of our listeners into action. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about that, because I believe in people power, in making things happen. And if we want to embed this shift, not only for ourselves, but because we know the damage that alcohol can do, because we all gave up drinking for a reason, then there are things that we can do to help make that happen. And I want us all to work together as active consumers in doing that.
Fantastic.
Sounds incredible. We can't wait to get started.
Thanks for everything. Thank you for everything you're doing, Laura.
Thank you.
It's been great to meet you.
You too.
We'll speak to you again real soon.
Speak soon. Take care. Bye bye.